Welcome back to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex. My co-host Anthony, the Great Rivardo. We are happy today. Victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. Been a while. Been 4 years? 2016, November 6th, I think it was the last time the Giants beat the Eagles at home. And before that, the last time they beat them away was 2013. So it's been a long time coming. It feels like the corner's finally turning for this Giants team. And Joe Judge is at the head of it and really making these changes and putting together a really stable and consistent group of guys that we're seeing develop week in and week out. But Anthony, my friend, how are you doing on this phenomenal Monday?
It's a Victory Monday, and it's not just any Victory Monday. This is a special Victory Monday. As most of you know, if you listen to this podcast, there is nothing, not one singular thing that I hate more passionately on this earth than the Philadelphia Eagles. So to beat them was a special, special treat. It was a win like no other. Like, there's the Super Bowls, playoff wins, and then beating the Eagles, you know? It meant a lot to finally beat them. The losing streak is finally over against them, and it means a lot, man. That was a very meaningful win. I cannot be happier with the way that the team played, with the way that my man, Joe Judgey, the way that he called that game. I think he did an excellent job. I believe in him, and I believe in the future of this team because of him. And I do think that yesterday was a signature win, and I think that it is the start of a brand new winning era.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And, the last time we beat the Eagles was what? Back when Ben McAdoo was in his first season as head coach with OBJ and Eli Manning. So that was the first year. That was the last time we had beaten the Eagles.
And think about it this way. Joe Judge just did something that Pat Shurmur never could do. He just beat the Eagles, and Pat Shurmur could not do that. He lost to them every single chance. He lost, 4 games to them? He went 0-4 against them, 2 seasons. Joe Judge, he only needed 2 games to get a win, and he really should have had 2 wins.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that first game, they lost by 1 point. It was really just because the defense couldn't close it out. They had the game wrapped up. An Evan Engram drop. The defense didn't hold him up at the end. These are things you just can't tell. You can't predict an Evan Engram drop when it's in his breadbasket, And this is something we saw yesterday a couple times. Then we saw Evan Engram make some ridiculous one-handed catches, fingertip grabs, and you're sitting there like, how is it possible this guy makes these types of catches? And Anthony, I know, has something to say about this, but how is it possible he makes these ridiculous one-handed catches, these unbelievable diving grasps by his fingertips, but then a ball comes right to his hands and it smacks him in the chin and goes bouncing off, or he bobbles it and almost gets intercepted. This is something we see on a weekly basis, but I know, Anthony, what's the solution here? What did he do different?
What did he do different? Well, everybody who's listened to this podcast has heard me go on rants and tangents about Evan Engram's gloves and the fact that he doesn't strap them in. Well, this week, if you notice, if you watched really closely, he strapped his gloves in, and his hands were like glue. Magically, overnight, he had the surest hands in the NFL. He's making one-handed catches, diving catches, fingertip grabs, no problem, now that he strapped his gloves in. I have been banging the table about this all season long, ever since week 1, when the strap of his glove got grabbed and then they missed the defensive pass interference call. They missed that. But he could have had a reception with 2 hands, but they grabbed the strap of his glove. I've been saying it since then. I was really screaming it after he dropped that pass against Philadelphia because you could see his hands. You could see the glove straps undone. And I went to the field this past weekend. I was playing some football with my friends, and they had their gloves on, and I was like, unstrap your gloves and try and catch this ball. And they started dropping balls all over the place. And I was like, you see what I'm saying about Evan Engram? He finally straps him, and he looks like a whole nother player. So you can't tell me that there's no correlation and probably a lot of causation with those 2 things.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of correlation between the two. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see the difference in the catches he was making against Philly. You're like, this is not possible for a guy who literally can't catch a ball that hits him in the hands, hits him in the head, hits him in the chest, and you just can't bring it in. So we saw a different Evan Engram yesterday. But again, they completely took him out of the game, right? He didn't have the craziest stats against the Eagles. I think he finished with, 2 catches for 15 yards, which is probably one of his worst games over the past couple of weeks. They really focused on Darius Slayton. Sterling Shepard got into the mix. Golden Tate even had a couple catches. But it really was the running game that beat the Eagles in this contest. Daniel Jones, 9 carries for 64 yards, averaged 7.1 per carry, 34-yard touchdown scamper. the guy can fly. Vanilla Vic can fly, my guys. So here we are with a quarterback who can do multiple things. These read options that Jason Garrett is installing into this offense are working, especially against the Eagles. They're working really, really, really well, and we should see him become more of a runner as the season progresses and find ways to open these holes for Daniel Jones, as we move along in the season against different teams, because it has to be a part of their game plan now. I think it works too well to take it out and really make him this pure pocket passer like Eli Manning that doesn't move. He needs to be running the ball as well. He has the speed, and we saw him yesterday. He didn't fall, right? The turf monster didn't grab him. And what did I notice that was different? He wasn't looking around. He wasn't checking his rearview mirrors every 10 seconds, or every couple seconds, really. And he ran straight ahead. He knows he has the speed. He hit almost 22 miles an hour on that run a couple of weeks ago. And I was against Tampa that they ended up losing.
Philadelphia. Against Philadelphia.
Okay, it was against Philly.
The 80-yard run.
Same team. He ends up falling, but he hit almost 22 miles an hour. He's fast enough that he's going to outrun anyone that's behind him, right? Anyone that's behind him, there's no one catching up to him when he's running that fast. He doesn't have to be checking his rearview mirrors. And they told him that. And on that 34-yard touchdown run against the Eagles this past weekend, he didn't do that. He ran straight ahead, touchdown, bam. He almost got a second one, but Andrew Thomas held on to his block a little bit too long. But Daniel Jones running the football, man, I have to say I was very impressed, and this needs to be a consistent thing moving forward. And then you have Wayne Gallman. And I know, Anthony, like you and I talk about this a lot, and what Gallman has done to receive more reps, what he did to really get benched and really put on the back burner with Pat Shurmur. Nobody really knows, but he did carry the ball 18 times for 53 yards, only averaged 2.9 yards per carry. But a lot of these runs were just short yardage, end of the game, milking the clock. They knew the run was coming. They were just trying to milk the clock and keep things moving along. So I think you can cough that up, but he had a few big-time runs. He had a long of 17 yards. Really impressed by Wayne Gallman. What did you see from this running game that put up 151 yards against the Eagles?
I'm a big Wayne Gallman fan. I've said that multiple times on this podcast, but I first want to talk about Daniel Jones, and I'm going to, once again, pat myself on the back here because I said, and I've been saying it for weeks, we need more design quarterback runs. And I brought up this argument a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if it was during one of our film breakdowns or during the podcast. I brought up the argument that, a lot of critics of Daniel Jones say he doesn't have any elite traits. And I said, well, that's just wrong. An elite trait is something that's rare. A quarterback running 22 miles per hour is rare. A quarterback running 80 yards, whether he trips and falls and doesn't make it to the end zone or not, 80 yards from a quarterback is rare. That is an elite trait, and they need to use that in the offense more. And it seems like Jason Garrett is finally understanding that and making the design quarterback runs and the zone reads a focal point in this offense with Daniel Jones, thankfully, because I do think that this is something that Daniel Jones is very dangerous on, these design quarterback runs. And I hope that they continue to make this a focal point of the offense because he is such an excellent runner as a quarterback. And then from Wayne Gallman, you really have to love what you saw. He had 2 touchdowns. Both of them were short yardage, but that's okay. He was really just hitting the holes hard, running into dudes, not carrying. He was a great runner, and he had good vision is the main thing that I noticed. He could see the holes open up, and he hit them, and he was very patient. And I think that, Wayne Gallman should definitely get a contract extension with this team at the end of the season and continue to be the complimentary back to Saquon Barkley.
Agreed.
But if he goes elsewhere, whatever team signs him is going to be getting a great running back in Wayne Gallman. I think that he truly is an excellent player.
Yeah, and even at Clemson, he has proven that he can be a very good running back, and he's a very, very talented downhill runner. He runs with so much power and speed for a guy of his size. And I think that even when Devonta Freeman comes back, there's no point in really playing him over Gallman, right? Gallman has proven that he can be the workhorse back of this offense, and I think you milk that. He had 18 carries to Alfred Morris's 8. So he's getting more reps, and the coaching staff is seeing what he's putting on the field. Now, my question for you is, why do you think other coaches, specifically Shurmur, didn't utilize him as much as we would hope? Because even when Saquon was out last year, they were using our guy, what's his name, John Hilliman, over Wayne Gallman. I don't understand really what the mentality was toward that, or why Gallman was benched. Maybe they didn't like his work ethic or his style of running. Maybe I don't know what it was, but it's clear to me that he is a very good player. I mean, he scored 2 touchdowns yesterday, 53 yards. Like you got to say, you got to give it to him. Like, he's playing well. And I think there's more to be extracted in terms of value in his game. Like, he can catch the ball decently if you get him into space. But like you said, I think he's a really good complementary back to Saquon moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the question that you're asking is a question I've been asking myself for years now, ever since Wayne Gallman entered the league. Even in 2017, I don't think he was the starting featured back. I think that was his rookie season. Ben McAdoo was the head coach and offensive coordinator at the time. And I always thought Gallman was solid. Gallman has always shown flashes of being a capable starting running back. And I think that, had the Giants gone a different route, and they made him the featured starting running back, I think that our cap space would look a lot better right now. And I think that we would all still be very confident in the running back position. I think we're all confident in Wayne Gallman. He is a solid player. And this running back by committee approach that the Giants are taking has been very effective. You see Dion Lewis go out there, catch a nice reception down the left sideline. He's able to make plays in the receiving game where Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris might not be able to. And then I like Alfred Morris out there as a nice change of pace back. Wayne Gallman goes out there, he's a little quicker. He hits the holes really hard. Alfred Morris is very patient. He'll pick up a few tough yards here and there. He's really not going to be a big hit or a big play hitter. But Wayne Gallman has that potential to rip off those 20-yard runs, and I do like Alfred Morris as a change of pace back. And I think all of this is to say that Jason Garrett did an excellent job this week and has really, if you look over the course of the season, he's done an excellent job. In the beginning of the season, we complained about him. We were ready to see him go. We were like, okay, it's not going to work. Jason Garrett doesn't look right. I think that really what was happening is he really just needed to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of this team. He needed to know what Daniel Jones is good at, what he's bad at, what the receivers are good at, what they're bad at, the running backs, everything, the offensive line especially. I think that was the main thing. And I think now that he's got all that figured out, he's really improved the offensive play calling and the offensive scheme in general. And I think he's done an excellent job these past few weeks. I was a little iffy on his play calling in Washington last week. I thought he was very conservative. But this week, once we had a lead, he didn't care. He put the foot on the gas, which is what I hoped for. I even tweeted that to you mid-game. You said something about milking the clock. I said, no, F that. Let's put our foot on the gas and take this thing all the way. And they did that. They kept their foot on the gas, and they were aggressive. Daniel Jones made a few really aggressive throws in the third quarter to get us in scoring position again. And, that's what you love to see, man. You love to see that improvement week to week, not only from the players, but from the coaching staff as well. And I am, fully on board with Jason Garrett now. He's won me over, especially after this win. I really think, this whole coaching staff has really won me over after this specific win, specifically against this team. But I'm very happy with, Jason Garrett and the job that he's done towards the second half of this season so far.
Absolutely. And now Jason Garrett, he changed his philosophy like 360. And what he did was, in the beginning of the year, it seemed like he was establishing his base concepts, right? He was forcing players like Evan Engram into this Jason Witten role. He was really just establishing his base ideas because it was still kind of like preseason, right? The first 3 or 4 weeks. So you have to give him some credit and some slack, for the first couple of weeks in getting his offense into shape. The offensive line was a mess. You're looking at Shane Lemieux now. He's way quicker than Will Hernandez. He's a way better trap blocker. He's showing a lot more promise in the run game. And Will Hernandez is actually a run blocking specialist guard. So that's interesting. Now, what I like about Jason Garrett is that he's actually started to formulate his scheme to fit his players and not the other way around. At first, it seemed like he was establishing this base concepts that he was making. He was kind of forcing guys like Evan Engram and other guys like Daniel Jones into his scheme. But now he's taking a look at his offense objectively and saying, what are my guys good at? And now I'll tell you this. You see it with Daniel Jones. These read options. You didn't see that with Tony Romo when Jason Garrett was calling plays. He's starting to actually fit his scheme to Daniel Jones' playing style. Evan Engram, we're seeing him push the field downfield more with Evan Engram in the seam. We're seeing him push Darius Slayton downfield a little bit more. We're seeing them run a little bit more on the outside and doing more creative draws with Wayne Gallman in the running game. We're seeing him run power and just like, it's different. What we're seeing now is completely different than we saw the first 5-6 weeks of the season. And I think he's starting to adapt his style. And that's what Kellen Moore did, by the way, in Dallas. He took many different styles and he worked them into the offense. He tried to figure out what worked best for his team. And a lot of it was matchup based. The NFL is a matchup based league. So you have to look at the opposing defenses and you say, okay, what is their weaknesses and what can we utilize in terms of strengths from our players to attack those weaknesses. The biggest one for the Giants, read option against the Eagles, has worked so well with Daniel Jones. So they milked that. They used it a bunch of different times, and they had a 34-yard touchdown run because of it. That's what we're talking about in terms of fitting your player's strengths to the actual scheme and attacking opposing defense's weaknesses. Now, the defense does that too. They limit him to 17 points, and the offense in general was phenomenal. I mean, look, the Giants will win if they do these two things. They don't lose a turnover battle, which they didn't. They tied. They both, neither the Eagles or Giants turned the ball over. So very, very, very good for the Giants and Daniel Jones specifically. The second thing is the Giants won time of possession, right? They had 31 minutes and 43 seconds compared to 28 minutes and 17 seconds. So they had about 3 minutes extra of time of possession. They tied for first downs 22-22. And the Giants actually outgained the Eagles in yards. So they won they won two of those categories, and they tied for the other two, and that equals victory by a 10-point margin. So we're seeing that the most important ones here is time of possession, because that means your offense is on the field more, your defense is getting more rest, and that equals less points for the offense. Because think about this, I feel like the Eagles were running over our defense at points in the game. I was a little bit like, our defense isn't playing too well. But then you look at the score and you're like, they only let up 17 points, so they must have been playing pretty damn well.
The key was third down. Philadelphia went 0 for 10 on third downs.
Yep. That's insane. Insane.
It's unbelievable almost. Like, I almost cannot believe that statistic. Patrick Graham and this defense really held Philadelphia 0 for 10 on third downs. That is incredible. It's a great statistic. That shows a well-coached football team right there.
Yep, absolutely. And, that's kind of what we're looking at here is development on a weekly basis, right? We're looking at the defense and saying, what can you do next week that you did bad this week? I think this past game against Philadelphia was Blake Martinez's worst game of the season. They were awful against the run. That is his job in this interior defensive line is to stop the run. And we're talking about Boston Scott, who had 3 carries for 63 yards. One of them was a 56-yard touchdown. Then you have Miles Sanders. Then you have Miles. I agree. I think it was out of bounds too. But Giants get screwed every week by one of these calls. We see it every single week. And then you have Miles Sanders, who was 15 carries for 85 yards, 5.7 per average per carry. This is a problem. The Giants came into this game as the 6th best run defense.
I got to throw this out here.
Go ahead.
PFF gave Blake Martinez a season-low 37.6 overall grade for his performance against Philadelphia. So you're definitely right. This was by far and away his worst performance of the season.
Right, and I think it's obvious because his job is to stop the run, and he did not do that well. I think in coverage he was probably about average because Carson Wentz only threw for 208 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had a 37.7 QBR.
He had an average 61.3 coverage grade and an abysmal 26.9 run defense grade. Look at Alex, guys. This man is like an NFL scout. Look at this man.
I'm learning. I'm doing all of this knowledge and trying to learn this game for you guys so we can provide better content. That's what the whole goal is, my friends. But we're looking at this here. The Giants defense played poorly in some categories, specifically run defense. 156 yards allowed, 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns for the Eagles were through the run. But then you look at the receiving, and James Bradbury, man. Just a round of applause for James Bradbury, who had 2 massive pass breakups on 3rd and 4th down late in the game that completely turned the tide for that defense. Completely helped.
I can't believe that Carson Wentz tried James Bradbury on a clutch 4th down in the 4th quarter.
Unbelievable. What an idiot. What an idiot.
Well, I'll just say, I've said it before, that is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. In case you didn't know that, that's Carson Wentz. He's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, for sure. But now, let me tell you something.
Just had to throw that out there.
Oh, I 100% agree. Carson Wentz, he looked abysmal. I mean, he
always
himself,
does, though.
really.
He always does.
He beat himself
He's just
against
not
the
good.
Giants. He tripped like 6 times trying to get the snap. And he has an
fumble
all-pro
on
center in Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, they weren't on the same page. It was actually really weird. I noticed that.
It was very weird.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, but back to Bradbury. The last two games, he's allowed 3 receptions and 26 yards. 3 games. And he was targeted 8 times yesterday and allowed 2 receptions for 15 yards. What? 39.6 quarterback rating against him. How dumb can you be to throw at James freaking Golden Arm Bradbury over here, who just uses that long reach of his to get in there and break up passes? Like, The only thing I will say, the only knock I will give Bradbury is that he's not the best tackler, but he is phenomenal in coverage. He's decent in run defense. But I mean, when you have a quarterback, and I actually tweeted this out today, I compared it to Byron Jones. Byron Jones is having about an average season across the board, and he's getting paid $2 million more on a 5-year deal with the Dolphins. Bradbury's on a 3-year deal, right? A 3-year deal. I think it's $43.5 million. So he's making about $14.5 million per season, and he's one of the best, if not the best, cornerback in the NFL right now. That is an absolute steal. I also want to give credit to Patrick Graham for making him that good because the scheme fits him perfectly. They have the right players, and everything in unison with this team is looking really, really good. And every time I see Logan Ryan play, I just have to say, they gotta extend this guy. He is such a key cog in that defense. They need to extend Logan Ryan. I think 2 years, maybe $14 million would get the deal done, maybe a little bit less, because he's only making about $6-7 million this season.
Well, they did extend someone else yesterday. They extended Graham Gano.
Graham
I think
Gano.
we can all be really happy with that. That guy has just been automatic, as consistent and as efficient as he possibly could be. He has not missed a point after, and he has made, 22 of 23 kickoffs or field goal attempts. So. I mean, can't get
4
any
of
better
5
than that. He hit
from 50
he hit
plus
a very
yards.
clutch. Yeah, he hit a very clutch 44-yarder. He had 2 clutch field goals in towards the end of that game yesterday. So.
He broke a record this year: 3 50-plus yard field goals against Dallas, which was a record in the Super Bowl era for most 50-yard kicks in one game. He deserved it.
He's automatic.
Was he $14 million for 3 years? Is that what the deal was?
That sounds about right. I think that's what it was.
I think it was $14 million for 2021, 22, and 23. I mean, kicker is a position in the NFL that if you have a bad one, it will always come back to bite you in the butt. Always. And missed
That's
extra
why when
points.
You find a good one, lock him in.
You lock him in because look across the league. Like Aldrick Rosas can't even keep his job right now. The Giants might have gotten lucky with his entire situation. They actually might have gotten away with murder.
I definitely think that is a situation where you say they got kind of lucky, because it allowed them to find Graham Gano. And, Graham Gano was coming off of this injury. Everybody was kind of questionable. Like, will he be the same player? Absolutely, he has been. And I think the Giants are really lucky to have stumbled onto Graham Gano. Yeah, he's really having one of the best seasons of his career. He's had plenty of seasons that were
an all-pro season.
He's been a great kicker for years, man. He's been in the league a long time. And hopefully this extension, maybe it won't even be his last. I know kickers sometimes go into their 40s and continue playing. Hopefully Graham Gano will get another extension with the Giants. And I hope that he finishes his career here.
Adam Vinatieri.
If he keeps playing the way that he's playing, I mean, he's been absolutely excellent. And there's really no way to complain about anything that he's done this season. Yeah. He has been absolutely perfect.
And by the way, want to know something interesting I just thought about? Another 3-year deal. Another 3-year deal. This team is committed to only offering 3-year deals to players. Very, very interesting concept that I've been noticing a trending for this Giants team. All of their big free agent signings, Bradbury, Blake Martinez, Gano, those are really the bigger ones. All 3-year deals. Then you have like the 1-year Kyler Fackrells, Leonard Williams, and the franchise tag. Those kind of the Logan Ryans of the world. Those kind of deals are supplementary until you have guys to fill in. But for the most part, these 3-year deals are brilliant because you get 2 years, and then you have essentially a club option for the 3rd year with very, very little dead cap hit, right? You can cut them with very little dead cap, and they're just front loading these deals for 2 years, and then supplementing other positions with 1-year deals. But that leads me to Logan Ryan and what happens to him when Xavier McKinney returns. Do you think that Logan Ryan stays there, or do you think that maybe McKinney replaces Julian Love, or they rotate those guys as they get McKinney accustomed to the defense?
That's a good question, man. I'm really excited to see Xavier McKinney return to the lineup. I'm hoping that he's back in there after the bye week against Cincinnati. But I being realistic, it could be an extra week or so after that. But we will see Xavier McKinney before the season ends, and I'm very excited for that, especially as the Giants are now very much in the playoff hunt and making a push for this division. Having Xavier McKinney re-enter the lineup could be, really beneficial for this already great defense, So I would think out of the 2 options you laid out, the one that makes the most sense is he would rotate in with Julian Love. I think that makes the most sense. Logan Ryan has really been playing at a high level, and he is a veteran. He is still learning the safety position as well, as we mentioned. He thinks he can be the best safety in the league, though, once he gets it down. So, completely agree. Giants need to lock down a guy who has the potential to be the best safety in the league. He should get an extension. And I'm really excited about the way that he's played, and I think, Julian Love hasn't really taken that step this year that we expected him to, but he's been a solid player. He's been a really good depth piece, which is what we always knew he would at the very least
Exactly.
be.
He's a utility man.
Exactly. So him and McKinney, I think you rotate them in, and then you see, who's playing better. Let McKinney get accustomed to the defense, let him get into football shape again. Ease him into the lineup, probably through the means of taking just a few snaps away from Julian Love.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think that's the way you go about factoring in McKinney, because you can't just, leave him out of this entire defense once he's ready to come back. I'm predicting a Week 13, a return after the Cincinnati Bengals game. I think that's realistic.
Playing the Cardinals that week?
I think it's the Cardinals. So that's going to be a tough one. A good time to get him back, though.
Here's another thing I'll point out is, as we look towards the rest of the schedule, the Seahawks are really struggling right now.
Yeah.
They could just start, the Baltimore Ravens are really struggling right now. It could be just so lucky enough for the Giants that as these teams start to struggle in the latter part of the season, we start to improve in the latter part of the season. That's what
That's what it looks like. This bye week is perfectly timed, by the way. Perfectly timed bye week for us, because we get this opportunity to heal up, rest up, and go into the next contest against Cincinnati. And if we can get a W against them, it'll prove that we have some momentum. And then you're going into a game against Cardinals, who just had a ridiculous win over the freaking Bills. DeAndre Hopkins.
That was a great game.
Shout out to DeAndre Hopkins for one of the most insane catches I've ever seen in triple coverage against multiple high quality players from the Bills defense, and Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. Those guys were all right there, and he still caught it over them. Unbelievable play, but going to be really tough to beat Kyler Murray. We don't have the pass rush to get it done, I don't think.
I just want to throw out there, though, that it seems like it's been a trend that the Cardinals are in a lot of close games, so I do expect the Giants to be in it. They should be in it, and they should have a chance. I think, didn't they lose to the Lions, right? They lost to the Lions?
Yeah.
And they were very close with, I think, okay, no, they weren't close with the Jets now that I think about it. But they were close for a little bit with the Jets, which was surprising, and then they ended up blowing them out. But they lost to the Lions, I think, right? You could take that as an example of where the Giants, this could be a team, the Cardinals, that plays kind of down to their competition, and the Giants could maybe capitalize on that, get into a close game, because I think the Giants, I don't think they've been playing up to their competition. I think that they are just far better than their record shows. They have
now, at
been
this
in
point,
a lot of these games.
At this point right now.
Yeah, they've been in a lot of these games, and they've had the opportunity to win a lot of these games, and they've had a lot of bad breaks, whether it be a dropped pass in the clutch, or, quarterback makes an error, or, a bad call by a referee even. There's been, and then, Dallas game, I mean, they literally just got ridiculous. A miracle. They pulled a miracle out of nowhere with that bomb to Michael Gallup, and then he kicks a deep field goal. So, there's just been some bad breaks, but I think the Giants, are really, I think they're a well-coached team. I'm the number one leader of the Joe Judge fan club, so I'm always going to say that. But I believe it, man. I think that, there's a lot to like about this team right now, and especially heading into this latter part of the season as we start to pick up some steam and gain some momentum. I'm really starting to believe in this team and starting to feel quite a large sense of hope right now.
Absolutely. That leads me to my next topic of discussion, and CB2. Isaac Yadum actually had a pretty good game. I want to check his PFF stats right now.
I don't know if he had a pretty good game, but he definitely didn't have an awful game like he had last week. So
it was his best coverage grade of the season. So I noticed that he wasn't beat too much. He allowed 3 receptions for 37 yards. But oddly, it didn't look like they were targeting him very much. They were targeting Bradbury way more, which is really dumb of the Eagles.
But the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. That's why. Okay.
Exactly.
So we're on the same page.
Exactly. We're on the same page. So what happens, at the CB2 position, because that is still a weakness. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Isaac Yadum is a good cornerback, because he's not. The Giants have to find a way to supplement that position if they want to get better and better and better as this season progresses. Otherwise, team will recognize that weakness and they will attack it. So that leads me to my next topic of discussion, DeAndre Baker. I know Anthony's about to shake his head, but DeAndre Baker, if you haven't heard, wild twist of events, he is suddenly exonerated of all charges. And the craziest part, this is the craziest thing. I think the guy's name is William Dean. was the attorney for 3 of the 4 victims, right? Victims that DeAndre Baker held at gunpoint and robbed them of their belongings because he lost in a dice game or whatever. They were betting on something. So 3 of the 4 victims, right? That guy, that William Dean attorney, was just arrested for trying to for extortion, right? Because of this case. They were trying to extort Baker and get money from them. I think it was about $266,000 per victim. So they got he got a little greedy trying to get too much money. He was arrested, and Broward County, Florida, the courthouse exonerated Baker of all charges. So now he is pretty much free to go, no record, nothing. And it seems like it was just a classic case. From what we know now, it was just a classic case of these guys trying to take advantage of a football player that they were with, right? Just trying to get some money from him. Now you're looking at a situation where he's going to be eligible to return to the NFL. You know, he's innocent. Like they proved him innocent, and he's going to get off the commissioner's exempt list. That's the next step. Now the Giants are out a first-round pick essentially, right, because of this whole ordeal. Do you think that they try and get him back? I know the culture might indicate they won't do that, and I know that maybe he won't want to come back because they didn't stick with him through the process. But do you think that, you know, there is a possibility he comes back to the scheme and they just plug him back into CB2 and they let him start to get some reps? Because I'll tell you right now, there's no chance in hell if there's an opportunity to get him back, I wouldn't offer him the second chance. Joe Judge is the right coach for it, is the right coach to really get him, take him under his wing and really discipline him and make sure he's held accountable and he acts the right way in the NFL. And you put him at CB2 and you let this defense develop the way it was supposed to at the position. What do you think about that?
Do you want DeAndre Baker back? Do you?
Do I want DeAndre Baker back? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back and letting him regain, you know, that lost respect that he had. I know he slept through some meetings. He didn't know the playbook, but Joe Judge gets the most out of players. He demands greatness out of these guys. The accountability that each player is holding for each other is something we haven't seen in recent years. I think Baker might actually benefit from this, and I think he really has been scared straight. He's had his whole world turned upside down. I have to imagine he's coming out of this like, I'm never getting in a position like this again. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna stay quiet and be humble and not be cocky. Like, there were red flags, but I think this type of thing scares someone into being a better person than they were before. Personally,
I would agree with a lot of what you said. I also want to point this out. I don't want to read too far into it, but in his bio on Twitter, and his Twitter profile picture is still him in a Giants uniform, and he has cornerback for the New York Giants in his bio. He never changed it, so I don't know. I don't think I want to read into that. I don't think that's really meaningful, but it could be. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he doesn't have so much bad blood for the Giants. You know, maybe he doesn't.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does because if you look at it from the Giants' perspective, their hand was forced. They needed to clear a cap. Right. They needed to clear a roster spot.
My point is they didn't though because he was on the commissioner's exempt list. So they
right,
really
that's true. But you have to think about it from his perspective too. Like if an NFL team is willing to give you a second chance after all that happened, maybe he knows personally that he might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was in a position he shouldn't have been in. If he knows this, and the Giants come calling and say, "Hey man, we want to give you a second chance. We have a new coaching staff. We definitely are happy to hear that you're exonerated of all these charges." If I were him, I'd be like, "Man, this is a second chance at life for me. This is a second chance to go back to New York with a team that's developing and growing, the team that drafted me, that picked me in the first place, and showed me the respect of moving up in the draft to pick me. You know, maybe that's something that's worth something. You know, maybe that's worth a second chance for him, and he's willing to do whatever it takes. Because being petty after all of that and saying, no, you know, I don't want to go to them, they didn't stick with me, might rub other teams the wrong way too. That might be like, he's so arrogant. You know, why would we take a chance on a guy that isn't willing to give a second chance after all that's happened to him? You know, like, the Giants have leverage in this situation. If they want him back, I think they could get him.
Well, here's the thing. He has a big market already. Multiple teams have called his agent. I was reading that. He already has multiple teams interested. So I think, you know, as a free agent, here's my thing. If I'm looking at it from DeAndre Baker's perspective, they cut me and they didn't have to. They could have just left me on the commissioner's exempt list and given me my roster spot and trusted me to get through this legal battle, right? Mm-hmm. That they didn't do. They cut him. So maybe you can call that a mistake by the Giants. I definitely think that they should have left him on the commissioner's exempt list. I think
agree.
it's like having an extra roster spot for for nothing. So they should have. And then from DeAndre Baker's perspective again, multiple teams want me. Some of these teams are going for a playoff run. And if I could just get into the playoffs and make a play in the playoffs and get my name in NFL history and get another contract or really
the
get
Giants
some
are in that
popularity.
spot, though. The Giants have a void at CB2 and are looking to get a playoff spot right now. I'd say that's actually his best case scenario if he wants to do that. There's literally an open position for him to take on the Giants' starting defense right now.
Sure, but what if he signs with the Chiefs, and he can go win a Super Bowl?
He's
and
not
make a
starting on
play
the
in
Chiefs, though. He's going to sit on the
Yep.
bench. He's going to sit
I
on the bench.
don't know about that. Chiefs don't have like a monster secondary. There's teams around the league that could use a cornerback that are in the playoff hunt.
I'm sure there are, but I don't think he would play a big part at all. I think he needs to learn the system.
I think
he was learning the system.
If he signed with Tampa, he's from Florida.
No, that's fair. I'm
Even
not saying that it's
I think he'd get a
impossible.
little bit of playing time.
It's not
He
impossible.
wouldn't be a starter, but
It's not impossible. You're right. He could sign with a number of different teams. That's the reality of the situation. But what I'm just arguing on behalf of the Giants and why there is a spot for him to take there pretty easily, and it's the team that drafted him in the first place, and he probably has friends there still.
Right, I get that argument, and I wouldn't be opposed to signing Baker back. I'd be very skeptical of the whole thing. I don't really know if he's going to be any good. He really wasn't good last year, Like, I know we said a lot it was a bad scheme fit, and he's going to strive in this Patrick Graham defense, right? And I actually still do believe that. I think he's a perfect scheme fit for Patrick Graham's defense.
I do too.
And that if none of this stuff happened, I think he would have actually had a pretty solid year. But we can't be so certain. He was really bad last year, and a lot of that might have been because of his work ethic. And while I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he's been scared straight, what if he's just not? What if his work ethic still isn't good, And then the signing, you re-sign him, it doesn't work. I mean, there's a lot of factors at play, I guess. I think the main thing, though, is that the Giants don't have a CB2. They don't have one. So if they want to sign this guy, I'm all for it because we need some talent, especially if we are trying to make this playoff push, right? So let's get a CB2. So, yeah, I'm down for it. I just, overall, realistically, to me, it's not going to happen. I don't think he wants to come back to the Giants after everything that transpired. I think he's just going to want a new, fresh start somewhere else where he can make a new name for himself. That's personally what I see from this.
Yeah, that's a very, very solid argument. I would not be surprised if that happens, And again, Joe Judge might say, I don't want to get involved in the mess. We've already moved on. Like, we're trending up. Let's not inject another player with some baggage into this locker room. I get it. The culture is very important right now. The Giants were a 2-7 team on Saturday afternoon, and now they're a 3-7 team, and for some reason these guys refuse to give up. This is a team that pretty much was written off after 6-7 weeks in the season, losing all these close games, and now people are saying this could be a playoff team. This is a team that's playing better than a 3-7 organization right now. So from my standpoint, I think that the Giants, this is a very interesting time for them. They are getting better. Daniel Jones looks better. I think this is his cleanest game of his entire career against the Eagles. He didn't throw for a touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a 91.4 QBR. He didn't turn the ball over. He took sacks. He threw the ball away.
He should have had 2 rushing touchdowns.
He should have had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Oh, my God. I want to talk about that real quick. What was your reaction when he ran in that second one?
I kind of just stood there. I kind of just sat there like, this guy should be a running back. No, on all seriousness,
Okay, go ahead.
I was very, very excited about the second one. Obviously, like my mind was blown. I was like, "Holy crap! This guy just ran for a second touchdown." Of course, Andrew Thomas had to ruin that one for him, but it was a blatant hold. Like he held him for sure, and he wouldn't have reached the end zone. Like that guy was going to get off that block and pop Daniel Jones if he didn't block him. In my opinion, if you look at it, it was right in his path.
Jones would have eaten that. He would have ran right through it.
Yeah, disintegrated the defender in his spot.
He would have went like this. He would have went gauntlet on, Thanos snap, and then he would have went to the end zone.
What if he dissipated the wrong? What if he disintegrated the wrong person though, and suddenly that guy just pops in?
Yeah, imagine he just all of Philadelphia has now disappeared. Touchdown, we win.
Wow, we just win automatically in the third quarter.
We would just snap the Eagles away and win. That would have been pretty cool. I would have liked that. No, I got to tell my story, right? Because, like I said, deep-seated hatred, passionate hatred for this team. All I wanted was to beat this team yesterday. That's all I want. I was pacing around the living room in my apartment. My roommate, we have 2 TVs. He's watching the Panthers game. He's a Panthers fan. I'm there on the smaller TV watching the Giants game, and I am just, pacing around the apartment, screaming, I need this. Like, I needed this win so bad. And when I saw Jones take off and get that second rushing touchdown, I didn't see the flag. I literally jumped up and screamed yes, like at the loudest tone. Like, I think I haven't screamed that loud in like a very, very long time. I screamed. I started hitting the wall and cheering, and my roommate's just sitting there like, there's a flag. And I'm like, fuck. I was so sad, man. I was like, damn, it was so deflating when that flag was there. And then I got like all nervous. I'm like, man, they better not blow this now. But
we can't have good things. We can't have good things as Giants fans, okay? There's always there's always a line where they're like, okay, you guys are having too much fun. We gotta throw a flag. Right. Sorry, bud. or the stepping out of bounds on the Boston Scott run. Like they're always like, you guys are a little too happy here. Got to bring it back.
I feel like that happened a lot in this week's game. I feel like there was a lot of, the Giants make a play and there's a flag. So, and maybe it wasn't even against the Giants, but there was always just a flag every time we made a big play, and it was just like momentum killer. It was very strange, and it was very annoying, and it pissed me off. But you know what, man? I'm just very happy
a win.
We won. A win is a win.
A win is a win.
That was a really good win. We won by 2 possessions.
Yeah,
that's
I'll say
rare.
We scored a touchdown in 3 of 4 quarters, and then we had 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. But the defense came to play. They didn't allow points in the second or the fourth quarter. That's the big one, though, to me. Not allowing points in the fourth quarter is the biggest testament to how far this team has come. Because in recent years, we've seen the Giants give up leads in the fourth quarter like no other. Like the fourth quarter comes around, we're in this game, and then they end up getting blown out by 22 points, and we're like, how did that even happen? How did we just do that? But no points in the fourth quarter against an Eagles team. By the way, this Eagles team was not the same team that we played a couple weeks ago, right?
This one was much healthier.
Much healthier. They had Miles Sanders, Alshon Jeffrey, and Jalen Reagor, and we still beat the crap out of them. And didn't let them score in the second or fourth quarter. I'm sitting here like, this Giants team in 3 weeks got exponentially better. And I think it's because Daniel Jones fixed his turnover problem so far. Knock on wood. But I think that he fixed his turnover problem. He looks way more aware. He looks like he's taking sacks, not trying to force balls. He's making the right decisions. But I also think it's because he's playing behind an offensive line that's playing way better than they were a couple of weeks ago. They are head and shoulders above where they were in pass protection and run blocking. And I think he's getting used to it. I think he's starting to trust his offensive line, stand in the pocket, make plays, and he's being hammered every single day by the coaching staff. If you feel pressure and you're standing in the pocket for a little bit too long, just take the sack. Don't try to make a play, because that's when he turns the ball over. It's gonna happen again. We're gonna see it happen again eventually. But 2 weeks, this is the first time in his career he's gone 2 weeks without turning the ball over. And yesterday, he didn't even look like he was going to turn the ball over once. Against Washington, he did fumble the ball twice. They went out of bounds, and he almost threw an interception. But, this game was the cleanest game I've seen from him. Like, he didn't look like he was going to fumble. He protected the ball. He didn't make any bad throws. His arm strength looked phenomenal. Everything that he showed to me, throwing to the boundary, his deep ball was on point. I was impressed. I was impressed in every category, and that's really something that we have not seen this year.
We're going to have to do a Daniel Jones film breakdown. I'm very excited about the way he played in this game. I think this was really the best game of his career. I've got some good stats I'm about to throw out. And really the main thing is how he played from a clean pocket, which he had more often than he used to. He's having a clean pocket on more dropbacks than he has in the past. And he's been excellent from a clean pocket all season long, but this game in particular. And one other thing I want to say, though, is I'm noticing a very awesome trend with Daniel Jones. He really likes to take shots against single coverage. We saw it against Philadelphia the first time when Golden Tate had that touchdown, the 39-yard touchdown. Golden Tate caught that on the right sideline. What Jones saw was single coverage, and the defensive back's back was turned to the football, so he took that shot to Tate. This week he did that again with Shepard on the left side and Tate again on the right side.
Gorgeous back shoulder.
When he sees single coverage with the defender's back to the ball, he takes that every single time, and he, like always, every single time I've seen him take that shot, it's perfectly placed football, and you gotta love that. Those are big-time throws, big plays, that Daniel Jones is making with elite accuracy, like great accuracy on those throws. So here we go. Daniel Jones is the highest graded player from yesterday's game with an 84.2 overall grade via PFF. highest game of his career as he continues to shred from clean pockets. When kept clean, Jones went 18 for 18 with 93.1 passing grade from a clean pocket. That is phenomenal, and it's a trend that we've seen actually all year. He's been excellent from a clean pocket all year. I'll pull up the rest of his clean pocket stats for the season, and then I'll also point this awesome statistic out because I saw this before we got on the podcast. Passing by direction, according to PFF, on 20-plus yard throws to the outside right hash, he is 7 for 9 for 248 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and 155.8 NFL quarterback rating, which is a 99.2 PFF grade, which is as close to 100 as I think any player can possibly get. And then 20-plus yards down the middle of the field, he's 4 for 6, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 149.3 NFL rating. So what this tells me is this season, throwing the ball deep, he has been incredibly efficient as he possibly could be while throwing the ball deep. And that's why I'm so happy to see Jason Garrett actually incorporating, more deep shots into this offense, being more aggressive. I love to see this, and I think that Jones is actually really good at throwing the ball deep. And when there's no pressure for Daniel Jones this season, he has a 91.2 PFF grade, which is one of the highest grades that you could possibly get and one of the highest grades in the league when not under pressure. So, sure, there's trouble that arises when he is under pressure. That's where all of the fumbles have come from. That's where all of the problems arise, right? But when Daniel Jones is kept in a clean pocket and he's allowed to go through his reads and progressions and make plays, he's
incredible.
Really, he's as good as anybody. He really can be. So, while a lot of us, myself included, we're starting to feel some type of way after that Tampa Bay performance and starting to really doubt him and have questions, these past two performances that he's put together, have really put a lot of those doubts to rest.
His stock.
He has done an excellent job. He's played clean football, turnover-free football, and that's the main thing that we needed to see from him. And I'm feeling a lot more comfortable and confident in him as a franchise quarterback now than I really ever have.
Agreed. And I think there's still a long way to go. There's a lot more consistency that we need to see before we feel, he is the guy moving forward. The Giants can use their next first-round pick on another player that isn't a quarterback. But I do have two things I want to say. Darius Slayton had a long reception of 40 yards. Sterling Shepard had a long of 27, and Golden Tate had a long of 38. That screams aggressive to me. They were throwing the ball downfield, taking shots, letting your receivers make a play.
And none of those receptions had yards after catch. All of those were perfect throws that were caught.
Perfect throws.
And tackled or out of bounds. They were none of that was after the catch. Those were deep 20, 30, 40-yard throws. Agreed.
And I actually have a question for you. What's the major difference that you've noticed when Daniel Jones really started to show this improvement? This, even the Tampa Bay game, I'm going to cough up as an anomaly because he missed throws that normally he would hit. What has been the difference though in this offense? I guess there's two things that I'm really pointing at here for Daniel Jones. The two things that really have made a difference in his development in the past few weeks.
I'll throw out two things. They might not be the same as your two things. One thing is from Tampa. We've actually seen this aggressive play calling since Tampa. That game, they had a lot of deep routes. He just didn't hit them. He did not hit them, and that was disappointing. But they were very aggressive in that game. They dialed up a lot of deep shots, and they got them open. So that's kudos to Jason Garrett. This week, they dialed up those same deep shots, and Daniel Jones hit every single one of them. So you got to love to see that. And another thing that I've noticed from Jones is, again, compared to Tampa Bay, his fundamentals, his mechanics are vastly improved. His
so
mechanics
much better.
Were bad against Tampa
So
for no
bad.
reason, though, because, usually they're fine. They're usually, earlier in the season, they were fine. But against Tampa, it got really ugly for some reason. He was, throwing all arm. He wasn't stepping into throws. He was hesitant. He was throwing off his back foot. It was his lower body. It was just not in the right position a lot of the time.
I think I know why. And I think the reason
I'm
why...
curious to hear your theory,
Go ahead.
But I also just want to point out that when you look at this week's game and last week's game, he's stepping into throws and his mechanics are perfect, which is what you expected to see from a David Cutcliffe quarterback out of Duke. And he's finally realizing that. And so, yeah, go ahead now because I'm just happy.
I think the main reason was that he looked so off against Tampa was because that was the first game the offensive line really played well. That was the first week that the offensive line showed.
Paranoia?
I think he was just. I think he had happy feet. I think he had Eli Manning happy feet. I think he was throwing off his back foot. He did not anticipate having so much time in the pocket against Shaquille Barrett, JPP, Sue, and like a bunch of really, really talented defenders. He had a way more time than he thought, and I think he was so scared. And these past 2 weeks, he's been stepping up into the pocket. He's standing tall. He's like you mentioned before, the clean pocket is the difference with Daniel Jones. And the two main things that I actually was pointing out was, one was the offensive line, which we just hit on. The second thing has been Sterling Shepard. I think Sterling Shepard has completely opened up this offense when it comes to Darius Slayton getting downfield, Evan Engram getting downfield. Shepard's ability to draw opposing cornerback ones. And so much of their scheme has to be accounted for, for Sterling Shepard. You can't leave him alone. If those whip routes, oh my God, his whip route ability is unbelievable. Nasty route runner. In the red zone, he has to be accounted for, and I think it completely opened up the offense for Jason Garrett and allowed him to start to take advantage of some of the strengths that Daniel Jones has that he wasn't able to capitalize on, because all opposing teams are doing before Sterling Shepard was there was just stacking the box, making sure those read options weren't there, just holding down Evan Engram and Darius Slayton, and suddenly their offense was non-existent. Sterling Shepard, man, his injection to this offense has been the difference maker for me, especially when it comes to opening up every other player and really attacking weaknesses on opposing defenses.
Yeah, and another thing I want to point out is when we're talking about the mechanics, we can also talk about the arm talent, because there was a throw where his mechanics were off, but not because of his own fault. That throw to Slayton on the left sideline where he got his knees taken out. First of all, that scared me. Because that looked like it could have been really bad, right? But second of all, his knees were taken out, and he really was like, folding backwards while throwing that ball. He took that hit while he was throwing it. And you could say maybe it was a little underthrown, but no, here's the thing. He just laid it out there in a catchable spot.
On the boundary,
and it was a perfect throw because he recognized single coverage defensive back's back was to the football. Once again, it's a theme. It's something that you notice with every single one of these deep shots that Jones takes. And it was a great throw, especially when you consider that his mechanics literally couldn't be good because he had his feet taken out from underneath him. And the arm strength and the arm talent to just get that ball down the sideline 30 yards, really, really impressive stuff there, man. You gotta like really be impressed with that throw and every deep throw that Jones threw in this game.
Absolutely. I was super impressed. We're going to do a little breakdown this week of him and what we saw different, from this game specifically, because I think this was the cleanest game we've seen from Daniel Jones so far. His mechanics looked stellar, crystal clear, and he corrected a lot of these turnover things, and a lot of protecting the ball has been a big one. We've seen him take hits, take sacks. It's okay to take a sack. He was sacked, I think, 3 times and 13 pressures. Look, that's okay. It's okay to take a sack. It's way better to go down and just have a few extra yards to go than to turn the ball over and give your defense another challenge. Put them on the field again. Screw over your offense in the time of possession. These are the factors that we mentioned before. Time of possession, super important. Turnovers, winning those 2 battles are the biggest thing. And the Giants tied Philadelphia 0-0 with turnovers and won by 10 points. That's the difference right there. Also, turnovers are momentum killers. They slaughter your momentum. So what we saw from Daniel Jones was, I think, the perfect game from him. I think we saw the perfect game. I don't care he didn't throw a touchdown pass. The 2 rushing yards from 34 yards out, and then Wayne Gallman had 2 basically just walk-in touchdowns. From that perspective, that's as good as a throwing touchdown for me. I don't give a crap about throwing touchdowns if you're going to run the ball in from 1 yard on the opposing team's 1 yard line, because Daniel Jones marched down the field on numerous occasions and got
them into scoring position by throwing the ball deep. He got them into scoring position. He doesn't have to score the touchdown. Get them in the position to score.
Exactly. So I don't mind that. Good teams run it in from the 1 yard line. That's what they do. Because they got all the way down there in the first place. You can't disregard that entire concept that getting down there from your own 25, own 10 yard line all the way to the opposing team's 1 yard line to run it in. That's just as good as a throwing touchdown, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I think that that was probably the best game of his career. I think he played an excellent game, a clean game, and he did everything that he was asked, and he did everything that he needed to, and then a little bit extra. So
yeah, I
think you got to be really happy with the way that Jones played there, and you really got to look at it and say, maybe this is the guy,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd rather have a 15-play drive where you run the ball in from the 1 yard line than a 75-yard catch from Darius Slayton. Just because that time of possession, you're letting your defense rest, and you're getting so much momentum. Of course, I'd have both of them any day of the week. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I
Right.
love these long drives. I love these time of possession, just consuming drives that Daniel Jones marches down the field and he doesn't leave anyone, he doesn't leave anything taken for granted. You really you sit there and say this guy is capable of doing what we ask him to do at a franchise quarterback level. And we're watching Russell Wilson the past couple weeks, and he's throwing interceptions. I think he had 5 picks last week, not this past one, the one before that. Or he had 5 turnovers. The guy's getting rocked, and I love Russell Wilson, All-Pro,
Wilson's been
Hall of
playing
Famer.
poorly.
But we're seeing that turnovers are a problem for a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. Going 2 consecutive weeks without turning the ball over is pretty impressive for Daniel Jones, and I think it's a stepping stone for him.
Yeah, I think it is huge, especially for a guy who's had a turnover problem since college. He put the ball in harm's way quite a bit back then too. This is just huge development, huge improvement, and like I said, this is what we needed to see. That's what I said, because I think that was in the mailbag, right? Somebody asked us who needs this win more, the Giants or Daniel Jones. And I said, well, it's a combination of both, right? But
Exactly.
what we need
They
to see from
coincide.
Jones more than anything is just a good turnover-free performance. We just need to see improvement week to week. That's what we need to see from Jones between now and the end of the season. Just get better every single week, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing, and I think that's really, really exciting. I think we can finally, hopefully, put to bed, at least for the time being, all these conversations about quarterbacks in the top 5, 10
Agreed.
picks of the draft.
Agreed.
Put that shit to bed for now. Let's just enjoy this season. Let's see Daniel Jones continue to improve and hopefully push us into that playoff spot, because that's what you play football for, man. Is to go
That's
to
all
the
you can ask.
playoffs and hopefully win a Super Bowl. You just want to see your team win. That's all I want. And man, like I said, against that team, that victory really hit different yesterday. That was
It really hit
a
different.
big, big win.
It did. And my friends, thank you for tuning in with us on Fireside Giants for this awesome episode. Recapping the win, giving you guys some insight on what is going on with this team, their developments, and DeAndre Baker, what we think of that situation. There's a lot left to do, a lot left for this Giants team to prove, but I think we're trending in the right direction. We're far better than a 3-7 football team, and Joe Judge is leading it, man. I gotta say, hat off to Joe Judge, man. He is turning this thing around. Anthony's the number 1 fan, Joe Judge fan club. So I think we are on the up and up, right? We're on the up and up.